Hey all, welcome back to my channel Hired Ready. In today's video, we are going to see something that's very special. That most of the tutorials in AI, Python, data science, even in IT training centers and colleges, they fail to teach us. But this is very important when you get into the industry, specifically when you are working on advanced AI-based projects. Let's get started for what we are going to learn for the day. So, what we are specifically going to see today is Bokeh library from Python. This is such an amazing library for creating visualizations when we are working with live data. In future AI-based projects, we often need to work with live data. Working with historical data is just for predictive analysis. When I'm developing a modern solution for AI, I definitely need to work with live data, right? So that basic charts will never be helpful. So what we have to use is a chart that is suitable for working with live data. So this is the name of the library that we are going to learn, Bokeh. So for working with that library in Google Colab, what you have to do first is you need to install that Bokeh library because Google Colab doesn't have that in default. So it is quite an advanced one. So first you need to use exclamation mark pip install Bokeh. So after you see this output requirement already satisfied with all these requirements satisfied, then we need to import output notebook from bokeh.io. You need to give output notebook, then the output notebook. Okay, you need to run that cell. Followed by that, the first chart that we are going to see is streaming like a line chart. So we are basically creating a line chart. But what is special about this chart? When I collect a live data, this chart is capable of adding live data, but with very minimum lines of code. So first, you need to understand how these lines of coding work. So what is actually going to happen? Why specifically we need this chart? First, you need to understand that. So the main reason why we need this chart is because it is capable of handling live data. Specifically in IoT based projects and all, what we will be doing with the weather detecting projects or the sensors which collect live data, we of course need to handle the live data and we need to create a live visualizations, isn't it? So this chart is specifically made for that purpose. When we see any TV shows that is live, you will be seeing the word streaming live. Why? Because it is happening at the right moment, and for that, we are getting data as video when watching some TV shows. Similar to that, this data will be converted into a chart in live. Every single second, it will be updated. So let's see how to do that in coding. The first thing what I have to do is I need to import my necessary libraries. Figure.show, column data source, button and custom JS for creating the charts using JavaScript. JavaScript coding that we are going to use here is we could take that from online as per our requirements. Then I'm importing column. So why specifically I need this chart? You need to keep that in mind. Whenever I want to track values over time, when I want to observe live changes that is happening in my data, if I want to detect trends, spikes, or instability, the stability is not really stable, instability. So if I want to detect them, how my data is changing in live, then this is definitely the best start. So when it comes to coding, after that importing part, what you're doing here is when I give source equal to column data source, here this column data source is actually going to be as a space where it stores data in column format. In table format, it is going to be stored in columns. So that is how you can do the dynamic updates in charts. So whenever the change happens here, it will be updated in the plot as well automatically. So that is why I'm giving column data source here. Next, for creating the whole figure, what I'm doing here is I'm giving p is equal to figure with the title and in x-axis what I have to plot and y-axis what I have to plot. So for plotting this line glip, I'm giving p dot line of x comma y and source equal to source and a line with this 2. This is something that we need to customize as per our requirement. I just want this coding, I mean this chart to be an interactive one. So that is why I'm adding so many JavaScript kind of things. Then I'm giving button is equal to button with the label add new data. While creating this chart, you can see something at the bottom of add new data. So when I click on the button, the live data will be updated. So I can see that a chart, how changes are happening, if it is increasing or decreasing. So that is how we can understand. Even it could be used in stock market analysis, gold market analysis, so anything for analyzing something in live. So this is the best chart you could use. And then when I give x dot push and y dot push, it is finally going to add a new time value and it is going to simulate the output. Now let's see how this chart looks like. This is how basically the chart looks like. When you first create it, it is going to be plain. It is not going to have any values. So something I got because I run this cell, that is why it is looking like this. If not, it will not be the same. So for that, I need to run the cell again. So this is how it will look like. When I click on add new data, the live data will be updated like this. When I click on this again, the chart is going to be updated like this. The next data will be updated. When I click on add new data again, if any changes happening will be reflected here. It is just a dummy chart. So it is showing me how this chart will work. So as per your requirement, you can change the whole coding part. So I'm minimizing to see the view, how it looks like from outside. Okay. Then the second chart that we are going to see is linked brushing plot. So the output of the chart linked brushing plot will be looking like this. So what basically is happening here in linked brushing plots? So here two plots are linked by the same data source. That's what is happening here. So whenever you select a particular data from a first plot, that will affect the second plot too. So everything is going to happen in live. The two plots are connected, so one data source. So now let's look into the coding. First thing that I'm going to do here is I'm importing my NumPy library. The main goal of this chart is to compare data visually, and we are going to explore the relationship between the data that we have in hand. Then we are going to perform interactive data analysis. Then in coding, we are creating the random data, right? So to generate a sample data, inside X, I'm using a random function from NumPy, and for Y also I'm using random function from NumPy. I'm creating random data that is 100 values in X and Y. Then the data source is going to be the column data source. So one thing that you need to notice in this column data source is here single data source is being shared for both the plots. Then we are creating two charts, right? The first chart is scatter plot, the second chart is line plot here. So for that, first I'm giving in P1, I'm creating scatter plot. In P2, I'm creating a line plot. That's what exactly is happening here. So when finally I run the cell, I'll be creating charts like this. So I told, right, whenever I select a particular area, the changes will be reflected in the next chart too. So let's see how it is working. So I'm going to select a particular area. Let's see if it is reflecting on the another chart or not. See, when I select this particular area, the change will be reflected on another chart too. So same data source, for that I'm creating two different charts. So to understand the data better way. When I click on reset here, the actual chart will be shown. So see, whatever I want to do, I can do, but the coding that we are using is very minimal. The third chart that we are going to see is hover tool plot. What specifically is this? Why do we have this name first of all? What is happening actually? So this chart specifically displays data values only when hovering over points. When I move the cursor over there and here, it will be showing me the values. So the main goal of this chart is to avoid clutter. It shows me the exact values in an interactive way. So it improves the readability. That is the ultimate goal. Now look into the coding part in this chart. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm importing the necessary libraries as per my requirement. That is the first thing that I need to do here. Then I'm giving source equal to column data source. So named columns enable this tooltips access, and it is required for hovering the tool usage. So when I give p dot circle x comma y, source equal to source size equal to 10, what is happening here? It actually links the visual points to source columns. So for creating the hover tool definition, that is why I'm adding in the next line when I'm giving hover tool of tooltips, which is equal to x at x and y at y. What is happening here? That at x and at y pull values from data source, the actual data source. So it appears only when we hover over. So to finally add the tools to this hovering chart, what I'm doing is I'm giving p dot add tools. So see, when I hover over this chart, it is showing me the values. Until then, it will not be showing me any values. And it can even be moved like this. So that is more special about this chart when we create over using this Bokeh library. The next chart that we are going to see is dashboard layout. So see, we can combine multiple charts to create a dashboard itself. That is why it's called a dashboard layout. So it's time to understand how the coding works here. So it is more simple to understand. First thing what I'm doing is I'm importing the necessary libraries and giving p1.line chart, bar chart and circle. So what I'm doing here is specifically I'm creating the line chart, bar chart and then the scatter plot. So followed by that I'm creating a grid layout. So for that I'm arranging plots in rows and columns. That's why I'm giving P1, P2, P3 and none and all. So here specifically why I'm giving none is because specifically we are intentionally leaving this space. This space need to be empty. So that is why I'm adding none here. Okay. So the values here I added, right? That A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is completely customizable. And instead of this values, we'll be collecting the actual data source. The actual data source will be collected to this part. So the final chart that we are going to see is custom JS callback. So what actually happens here? Custom JS callback. So in this chart, this specifically updates using the live JavaScript. Here we will not be using any Python backend at all. So what is actually happening in this and how to create this chart? That is something that we need to understand. So for understanding this, now look into the coding part. Okay. So here, the first thing what I'm doing here. The first thing is I'm creating the central data source and it can be completely modified and it can be completely customized. So that is what I'm doing here. So the first thing is column data source. The next thing is slider. I'm adding slider to this. First importing libraries, then I'm creating the data source. Then I need to create a figure, right? That is why I'm giving p is equal to figure. Then the slider.js, this is completely based on JavaScript. So it is actually a JavaScript logic. Here we have that data dot y of I is equal to I plus 1 into factor, right? It actually multiplies the y values. So it reflects changes instantly. So that is going to happen here. When I give source.change.emit, it redraws the plot. So the major goal of this chart, specifically, what is happening in this chart? So this is for fast client-side interactivity. So that is why we need this chart. So see, I can move this bar. Whenever I move, my chart will be moving. So here the value is 5, right? So it went to 5. When it is on 4, it is on 4. So that is how this chart works. So the coding some part could be confusing. So it is actually a customizable chart based on JavaScript. That is why. So we can take the coding part from online as per our requirement, but giving our requirement. So this is how the chart works beautifully. I believe you clearly understood how you could create this interactive charts for working with live data. So if you are watching my channel for the first time, make sure you subscribe my channel so you'll not be missing any updates. Bye for now. We'll meet you in next amazing video.